That's Jimmy Stein. I'm Clint Lamb, and this is the Cover Crimson YouTube channel. Jimmy, let's just right out the gate. Let's go ahead and get to it. What's wrong with Alabama? We've seen all these emojis. We've seen, people dropping all these hints, and they're getting 3 stars all over the place. But where's all the juice, man? I mean, the sky seems to be falling for Alabama out on the recruiting trail. Can you tell us or share with us why you think that is?
Why I think the sky is falling, or why I think people think the sky is falling.
There you go.
Because the sky is not falling at all. As a matter of fact, I think this year is shaping up to be extremely similar to last year, where Alabama finished, I think, 3rd nationally. And I think Alabama is going to finish somewhere in that ballpark again, based on how it appears that things are going to lay out. I think we'll know more in the next 10 to 12 days. I think in the next 10, 12 days or 2 weeks, we'll know, is Alabama on track to finish in the top 5 again? Is things a little more, well, we're not sure where Alabama's going to finish, or are things truly going bad? I think we'll have a definitive answer to that just in the next 2 weeks or so. But I'm really optimistic that it's actually going really well. I do think that there is a learning thing here about this new world. And when I say this new world, I'm not referring to NIL, because that world happened in 2021. We had what we all got used to growing up and following this sport, and that all ended in 2021 with NIL. And then we had the NIL world, and then as of about 2 to 3 weeks ago, now we've got the post-house settlement world, and it's going to be drastically different than even the NIL world. I think it's going to take a while for everyone to catch on to this. The schools aren't exactly sure what it's going to look like either, but I do think that's playing into this recruiting class, Clint. And it starts with this: there's now a salary cap. We didn't have one of those before. It's extremely NFL now. Everybody wanted college football to turn into a little NFL. Now we even have a salary cap, and that's the revenue sharing number that comes from Alabama, that comes for every school. And that revenue share kind of acts as a cap, and it's going to affect your recruiting, who you take, how many you take, how many 5 stars and 4 stars you can jam in. But the days of just signing 30 5 stars and 4 stars is probably over for everyone, unless the NIL component goes a little differently than planned. Then maybe you can get back to doing that. But for now, in terms of design, with NIL having to be any NIL deal over $600 having to be approved by the clearinghouse, for now, the new system is there's a salary cap. You can have up to 105 players. It all has to fit under the cap, and NIL has to be approved by the clearinghouse. It's radically changed this world. And for people not understand how that's going to play out as it relates to who's in your class, I mean, this has a profound effect, very similar to the change in 2021, when out of the blue, all of a sudden through NIL, you could pay the players.
Very interesting points. Something to potentially, and sometimes I have these examples in my head and I say it and then I'm like, that didn't exactly land how I thought it would. But a good example of what you're talking about is a guy like Roman Voss, right?
Yep.
He is everything to Minnesota.
Right.
He is absolutely everything. So from an NIL perspective, I'm not saying that they're automatically coming in with a much higher number than Alabama. But what I am saying is that you've got a school, it's a home state kid, and they're going all in on this guy. And before, when you really couldn't pay players and the money couldn't be different, then, it came down to other factors. But money plays a factor, being at home plays a factor, but just the priority in which the 2 coaching staffs are approaching maybe his recruitment, that could end up playing a part where instead of Alabama getting 1 really good tight end, maybe in the past they would have gotten 2 really good tight ends. Now your depth is even better. Not the perfect example, because I'm not saying that, I'm using him as an example without knowing some of the details of his recruitment.
It's a perfect example, Clint, because I want people to think about it this way. And again, I'm learning as we go too. I've just had some conversations with some coaches, and I kind of know what some coaches feel about this that are kind of in the arena. And again, they're feeling their way through this too. But It's this simple. Alabama and Minnesota have the same number to share. They're spending the same amount. Alabama and Minnesota have roughly, might differ a few 100,000, but they roughly have the same amount of money to spend on their recruiting class. Alabama's highest priority, and I'm just picking a name out of the netherworld. I'm not actually telling y'all he is, but just to pick a name, Alabama's highest priority is C.D. Morgan. Okay. Minnesota's highest priority is Roman Voss. So their offer to him is going to look a lot different than Alabama's offer to him. What Alabama is offering Roman Voss is, yeah, okay, the rev share numbers almost certainly much lower, but you might have more NIL opportunity at Alabama because it's a bigger platform and there's more NIL opportunities for Alabama athletes than Minnesota athletes, probably. Secondly, just the platform, and you're playing in the SEC, and we're going to make you a better player because of not just who you play against on Saturday, but who you practice against Monday through Friday. If you want to play in the NFL, we're the place that can train you and get you there. That's the pitch. Minnesota's pitch involves you're our highest priority, thus arguably our highest rev share number. Alabama's highest rev share number, who's that going to? C.D. Morgan, Crowell, Xavier Griffin, Jira Edwards, heck, Jet Tamala, who's a quarterback. I mean, so that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying, boy, this all got crazy complicated, but maybe the better adjective to describe it is different. It's just different, and it's more like the NFL, and it's more like the salary cap, and college football fans have to get used to thinking in those terms, similar to NFL and free agency, similar to the NFL draft, how the NFL teams add talent and stay under the cap. That's sort of what's going to go on in college football for now.
One of the things I was doing random research, and I stumbled across something, and I wanted to get your take as far as why you think that it is. So between 2011 and 2010, so after Alabama really got going on the recruiting trail with Nick Saban due to the success, they averaged 9.7 top 100 recruits per class. Starting in 2021 and going from 2021 to 2023, that number jumped to 15.7. So a 6-player difference. Now, as I'm looking at that, I'm wondering to myself, okay, was this due to Alabama being able to pay players necessarily, like everybody being able to pay players, and Alabama was it the Nick Saban factor with the fact that you could give everybody a little bit of money, or was it simply that the coaching staff started approaching things a little bit differently? Was it the flexibility that the transfer portal gave some of these players? Hey, I can go to a place like Alabama and I can compete with the best. And then if I ended up getting buried on the depth chart, I now have the flexibility to transfer. So maybe some guys that you wouldn't have been getting otherwise because it was a loaded position, maybe at receiver, we saw some crazy runs at wide receiver where there were a lot of really, really good players there. Maybe that competition wouldn't have been there, or guys wouldn't have been willing to do that had they not had the ability to transfer elsewhere should things not work out. Is that why they were willing to do it? There's a lot of different ways that you can look at it, but I thought that was really interesting because right now with where Kalen DeBoer is trending, so in 2024, they had 9 top 100 recruits. In 2025, they had 7. And with where things are trending, it could be anywhere from 8 to 10 probably in this current cycle. So it's come back down a little bit. We'll get into the why that is for just a second, but I wanted to get your thoughts on why a 6-player jump like that. Was it just they had a little bit of a good run? Because I do also want to point out the reason that I even researched this in the first place was to point out just because you're loading up on the most talented guys, that number jumped by 6 players. What did Alabama do post 2021? Did they win national titles? Did they dominate everybody? No. So they actually got better as far as the number of elite players they were signing compared to previous classes, and yet the success on the field started to diminish a little bit. So maybe there's something to signing those hungry 3-star guys that are going to come in there and work and have the right mentality. Like, that was the whole reason I was doing the research in the first place. I just thought that jump was pretty substantial and pretty significant.
Yeah, it's so substantial, it's hard to explain. My feeling is, or my guess is, when there's a change of that magnitude, when it's that big, there's probably not one answer like, oh, it's because of A. It's probably A, B, and C to explain such a big jump. In terms of top 100 players now, This is what I believe is going to happen. Boy, this could be wrong, because if you ask me in 2021, hey, Jimmy, how's NIL going to play out over the next 4 or 5 years? In 2021, I'd have been really wrong. Okay. And this is the infancy of post-house settlement. And I'm telling you all how it's going to be, fully realizing how wrong I would have been in 2021. But I hope that Alabama's fans, because we talked about at the start of the segment about the skies falling, I hope Alabama fans understand that they need to compare their recruiting class against everyone else's in this cycle, and don't compare Alabama's recruiting class and the 26 class to Alabama's 2008 class, or Alabama's 2012 class, or Alabama's 2016 class, or even Alabama's 2021 class. The landscape has changed. The rules, the rules themselves have changed. Thus, the landscape has hugely changed. We should only be concerned how Alabama is recruiting versus its current peers. Right now, as we record the show, Clint, I think Alabama's 11th in the On3 industry team rankings. That's not where Alabama's typically been. I don't believe it's where Alabama's going to end, because Alabama's waiting on some steroid shot guys that are going to zoom that ranking up. I'm talking about C.D. Morgan, Jira Edwards, E.J. Crowell. I mean, those guys alone, Tank Jones, perhaps, Nolan Wilson, perhaps, Tristan Davis, perhaps, Xavier Griffin, perhaps. You get all those guys, and now where you're ranked. I mean, heck, maybe number 1, but I don't know, but certainly not 11th. So I don't think the sky is falling. I would call the sky partly cloudy, or we're not certain of the forecast. There's too many moving low fronts and high fronts and tornadoes and cyclones out there. It's really uncertain, because all the rules have just changed. All these kids are interested in the money end of the deal, and they all want to know. And now we have this weird thing, Clint, where we talk about Roman Voss, who I think is a fascinating subject as it relates to the new rules. Just my thought, I could be wrong here. 2021 to 2025, when this was basically all about NIL, and that's how you pay the players, that kid might be at Alabama. In this rev share world, he's at Minnesota, because the rules changed, and now Minnesota and Alabama are on an equal playing field with the money, and Alabama doesn't necessarily have a massive NIL advantage in this case, though they might. History may show that they do, but as for now, I don't think we can assume that. So I'm just saying that's how much the rules have changed. This kid was probable Alabama 2021 through 2025 class, but now the rules have changed, and now Minnesota became really tough to beat.
Something else that I noticed through the random research, and I feel like I do this 24/7. I'm sitting on the couch watching a TV show. Next thing I know, I just start going down a rabbit hole, and it's 3 hours later, and I've been doing nothing but sitting there diving into stuff. So, and I'm not going to reveal all the players, because I'm not going to have people, Clint Lamb predicted this, whatever. I'm not doing that. But for my own sake, I'm kind of a little bit of an outlook on who I think Alabama's trending for relative to what's been circulating in the news, who they already have committed. And I'm looking at their class, and I'm thinking, okay, if they get the guys that we're thinking they're going to get, and there's probably one that I don't feel really good about, but I feel pretty good about that I included. Otherwise, it was like people that are very, very possible. Yeah. It ended up, I think, being either 19 or 20 guys. If I'm not mistaken, exactly 20. And granted, I had 6 5-stars. Don't know if that's going to happen. And 6 3-stars, and then the rest 4-stars. And it triggered something in my mind as I'm looking at that. Granted, we saw that with Nick Saban classes too. So people are going to, I think people right now with the 3-stars, they're not really understanding the purpose behind it. I think when you've got a set amount of money that you can spend, you've got to go about it one of 2 ways. You have your priority guys there at the top that you're going to be willing to set aside a chunk of money to pay them. Alabama doesn't get into the NIL game as far as the highest bidder. They don't do that. They evaluate. They make other types of pitches. They are strong. They are competitive in the NIL area. But that is not what they want to be the primary. I think that's smart roster building. I think it's great culture building. But to balance what you're kind of giving some of those guys, you've got to have phenomenal evaluation. You've got to be able to go out and get what I would view as guys who are maybe not viewed as highly. They're a little bit cheaper, obviously, where you can kind of balance and manage. And if you can hit on those players, which when this is where I think Kalen DeBoer and this staff, their experience at Washington, this is the types of players they had to go out there and get. And then you had to develop them if you wanted to be a national championship contender. They weren't recruiting on the level of Michigan or Alabama or Ohio State. They were getting some good players, but relative to the other national championship contenders, it took development, which is why I love this staff. You look at wide receiver, you talk about C.D. Morgan, them going after him. You talk about Brian Williams. You talk about Gabelle. Like, it's a balance between the guys there at the top and then also the guys who really have a lot of tools that you can work with. And if you trust your coaching staff, then you can get enough out of those players where you can create the depth that you're looking for. Now, granted, sometimes it's Justin Okoronkwo where, you know, you start developing that guy and he looks like he's going to be a dude after he wasn't super highly rated, and he hits the transfer portal himself. And then he uses this as a way to go get paid. But there's also going to be a lot of situations where guys stay loyal. The loyalty with the coaching staff is there. They build a culture of loyalty, and you can start building or helping your depth through that avenue. I just don't think fans are appreciating the lower rated gets that they're getting as much as they should.
Man, I love that take, and I think those type takes are going to be more critical. USC right now has 30 commitments. 10 of them are 3 stars. Texas, richest school in college football. They really are. Richest school in college football. They have 6 3 stars already. And I think what you're going to see is more and more 3 stars signed by all these schools before December. Why? Well, if your budget at wide receiver is $300,000 and one of them costs $240, but you'd really like to sign 2 or 3, you got to go get 2 more and you only have $60,000 to spend. That's where this is coming in. And that's why there's going to be so much of this. But some of these, quote, lower ranked guys that Alabama might stand a chance to sign are really exciting. The funny thing about Owen Cabell to me, Clint, is if I told you that Alabama looks like they're going to sign, like, hey, looks like Alabama's going to sign a wide receiver that's almost 6'4", that runs a 10,700 meters, that ran a 4.4 at Alabama's camp and had nearly 1,000 yards receiving as a junior, you would say, Alabama's going to get C.D. Morgan? That's who you think I'm talking about.
That's
but I'm talking about Owen Cabell.
That's right.
Because he's all those things.
And that video that broke with the route running, I mean, this guy can flat out run routes too. Like, he's a great mover. And that's what I'm saying. And that's why I think that this is why I'm such a big believer in what Alabama is building as a program relative to a lot of the other programs in college football. Is everybody's going to have to go take those guys. So it's a matter of who can find the diamonds in the rough at a more common rate than everybody else. And here's the thing. I believe in this staff's ability to do that way more than I do a lot of other staffs who are not used to having to do that.
I wonder if in part that's because they were at this core group was at Washington, and before that they were at Fresno, and before that they were at Indiana, because that's who they were recruiting. That's who they were looking at. You know, and gosh, give them a ton of credit for making the transition to Alabama, where you can literally sign any kid you want. There's no kid in America that's untouchable when you're Alabama. Every door is open for you. If you're the number 1 prospect in the nation and you're from New Hampshire and Alabama's knocking on the door, you open the door. That doesn't happen for everybody. This staff made an unbelievable transition from, boy, we have to evaluate like gangbusters to do well here. And then they transition to, well, now we can sign kids just by sending them a postcard and saying we want you. It doesn't matter who the kid is. They've made an unbelievable transition. And I wonder if that evaluation skills that these guys have, because it's clearly there, you can see it from Chris Booker is a good example. The day Alabama got a commitment from offensive lineman Chris Booker as part of this class, he was a 3-star. He had almost no offers. He wasn't the biggest guy in the world. And there was, silly as it sounds, criticism on message boards, on social media and Twitter, like, why are they taking this guy? He's got no offers. He's not ranked. He's not even big. And there's all this stuff. That was a few months ago. Now fast forward just a few months. Solid 4-star. Who wants him? Georgia, Florida. He measures 6'4", 290 on his official visit to Alabama. He's going to end this cycle, I'm guessing, top 150 nationally, no worse than top 200 nationally, which makes him a blue chip prospect, certainly. And that's just a great example of this staff and how they're ahead of the curve evaluation wise. They did the same thing a year ago with Jackson Lloyd. And heck, even in more high profile situation, they were sort of first to the party with Keelan Russell. I know he was committed to SMU, but in terms of the platform that Keelan ended up, Michael Carroll, the platform that Keelan Russell ended up on, Alabama was sort of the first to that party, because before then he had been viewed as a group of five type quarterback. And then Alabama shows up. Next thing you know, he ends the cycle only behind Bryce Underwood at quarterback. So this staff are excellent evaluators, and that trait is huge in an era where you absolutely see rosters used to have, you could only have 85 scholarship guys. Now you can have 105 if you want to use them all. You can have 105. You can't have more than 105 players on the roster. So rosters are expanding, but there's a cap as to how much money you can spend. So now there's this NFL capology type thing. How many players can we want? How many can we fit in? The ones that have the full rosters that go all the way to 105, gosh, those bottom 30, 35 guys on the roster are going to be pretty lightly recruited cheap guys, because you can't make the money work with 105 four stars. You can't make the money work that way. So it's fascinating. And the fact these guys are good evaluators, they've come along at a really good time in this post-House world.
They 100% have. Yeah, I completely agree. And Javari Barnett is one to me who kind of fits exactly what we're talking about. Now, granted, I think On3 already has him as a 4-star, but yeah, I think in the On3 industry rankings, he's ranked somewhere in the 450, 490. No, actually, I think he's 490 overall, but only listed as a 3-star right now. Now, I think people are going to catch up. Here's the thing about him. He only played 3 games this past season. Now, what I don't know, I went and watched the games, but I don't know at what point he was injured. I just know he was injured. Was he injured and came back, or was at the beginning of the season and he was lost for the season? That's
not sure.
Okay, see, I don't know either. And so I've actually been telling people it's been, he played in 3 games, then got lost for the season, and I might be incorrect on that. I just know that he played 3 games. He had a fairly significant injury, obviously. Yeah. And teams, or a lot of programs, are saying, we really just want to see you your senior year. And
I could be wrong, but I think there's a clip on his huddle tape where it looks like, hey, that's the play he got injured on. He's cackled awkwardly on one thing, and I'm like, is that the play where he got hurt?
Surely it's possible. I remember. Yeah. That's
I mean, he could have just gotten popped right back up. The clip, it cuts off, so you don't see what happened. He goes down awkwardly, and if you'd have told me, yeah, he tore his meniscus there, I would not be shocked.
Well, so he was offered by Alabama in February. He committed to Illinois in early April, and then right after that, he took an unofficial visit for a day to Tuscaloosa, and then obviously he made an official visit this past weekend. And soon after, the flip was on. At that point, and this is a guy who did only play in 3 games this past season, had 30 carries, 249 yards. And 4 rushing touchdowns and an 8.3 yard per carry average. Really didn't see a whole lot as far as in the receiving game. I don't know, and that's kind of an unknown to me. But what I saw was vision. I saw power. A lot of broken tackles. I was very surprised by his long speed. That was something that I would probably call that a strength. Which when you look at him, I would think, okay, he's got the complementary long speed, perhaps, but for being a guy that big and that powerful, being 6 foot 215, which is what he's listed at, he brings some home run hitting ability. And I was actually really impressed. And I know Xavier Crowell, the coaching staff, is hot after him as well. They're in really good shape, and it's possible that they take 2 backs. But Barnett is one, man. I was very surprised going to watch the tape how much of a true D1 player this guy is. And it's an example of Alabama staff seeing him and saying, no, we see what we need to see in those 3 games. And I'm sure they've looked at probably earlier highlights as well, or tape, excuse me. But they are confident enough to say, no, we'll take you right now. We like what we see. And they went after him, and they went after him hard. And that's just another perfect example of that.
I think if well, I mean, the BOL guy said it, but if they only wanted one back this cycle, I think Barnett would have been. I'm not going to blow sunshine here. He would have been an acceptable one back. I mean, if like, hey, we want one running back in this class, and this is the guy you got, I'd have gone, okay, because clearly there is some high level upside there. Now, it wouldn't have raised eyebrows or made headlines like adding EJ Crowell's going to do later, assuming he commits to Alabama. Now that's a headline. That's an elite 5-star type player. That's a different conversation. But if Barnett was just the one back you're taking, it's pretty good. I think Rivals ranks him the 22nd best running back in the country. And when people think, oh, 22nd, that's not. Well, there's 65 Power 4 teams. So if you're the 22nd back and you're in the top third of all Power 4 backs, I mean, if you're in the top third in the NFL, I mean, what's I'm terrible with the math. Well, what's that, like top 12?
Yeah.
I mean, or top 12.
11.
Yeah. So that's crazy to me about how 22nd ranked back is not low ranked. And like you said, I think 2 of the services have him as a 4-star, despite basically not really playing much as a junior. But boy, when you watch that tape, you're just looking for boxes to check. He's got plus size. I mean, the size is plus. It's not like, is he big enough? No, he's more than big enough. So with a big guy, now the question is burst and long speed. He seems to have it to me, and that's only going to get better as he works with Ballou's staff, at an Alabama. Last thing I'll say about him is a shout out to Brett Bielema. Really, I'm not a big fan of piggybacking offers. Not a big fan of them. What I mean by that is, Kirk Ferentz at Iowa is a really good offensive line coach. Iowa puts a lot of offensive linemen in the NFL. He's a longtime offensive line coach himself. That's just a position Iowa's done really well at. And I say that in the sense that if Kirk Ferentz wants you as an offensive lineman, I'm interested. Even in Alabama, I'm like, hey, Kirk Ferentz says this guy's good as an offensive lineman. You need to pay attention. Iowa and tight ends. 4 starting tight ends in the NFL are from the University of Iowa. Whatever they're doing at tight end is working. If Iowa offers a tight end, you ought to check in on that. Sark and quarterbacks. Sark is an excellent quarterback coach. The best quarterbacks in the country want to play for Sark. If Sark offers a quarterback, might not be a bad idea to be right behind that offer. And that's what I mean by that. And I say all that to say, Brett Bielema's usually got a good back. He really does. I mean, at Arkansas, they were fantastic. At Wisconsin, they were fantastic. Now he's building it at Illinois. And if Brett Bielema says this guy is a good back that we want to kind of build it around, sounds good to me.
That is such a phenomenal point. And, like I said, to me, I see the vision with a lot of their lower rated guys. Like when you go and watch them, you can see what the coaching staff is seeing. And it's another reason why a lot of these other staffs are chasing, because they go look into them and they're like, damn, we missed something. This is a good kid. We need to be going after him. But when you're kind of one of those first major schools to start pursuing somebody, it is a leg up for you, especially when you're able to build those relationships like Alabama's coaching staff is. So wouldn't be shocked if Alabama ended up having 2 backs in this class. And if they do, I think they're getting 2 phenomenal backs. And now I'm not saying that Barnett is on Crowell's level. I'm not going that far. I'm just telling you that this isn't just a guy to take for, I think that he is a very good player. He has a ton of upside. And when you look at Alabama's running back room, you're definitely going to be losing Jam Miller and Draylon Washington, and you don't know what happens with the transfer portal. So while they're pretty stacked at the position right now as far as number of bodies, I mean, I'm sure the coaching staff would probably want 5 or 6 bare minimum each and every year. You lose 2, hey, you sign 2. But some people might say, well, you don't, if you got 5, that's fine. I mean, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, these injuries start stacking up. You never know. It's getting to be a longer season. And one of the positions that takes a beating more than others is running back. So I think that they're kind of foreseeing that. And they're saying, hey, the run game might be more complementary to the passing game in this offense, but they still understand the importance of that position. And it is still a very critical position within this offense and what it provides from that complementary standpoint. So I'm not surprised at all that they're making sure that running back remains a priority, because they just signed AK Deer and now they're going after 2 guys. So, I mean, and it's possible Alabama ends up with the number 2 running back in back-to-back classes on top of a very underrated guy in Barnett. that's what this Alabama coaching staff is looking for. I mean, that they'll show you where they're going. So you just got to listen.
Post House, you bring up number of backs. This is all going to be in flux. But think about now, for the first time this fall, there is a 105-man roster limit. Now, it gets a little complicated because you can grandfather in walk-ons. Walk-ons are about to be a dying breed, but they did allow, the NCAA and the judge in the case, Judge Wilkins, did allow, if you're a current walk-on, you don't have to be cut for a team to make the roster limit. So current walk-ons are going to be allowed to remain walk-ons. But point being, going forward in the future, Clint, there's going to be a hard 105. That's all you got. And before, while, hey, if you get all the way down to the walk-ons, that's not a good sign at any position. But before, there was some cushion. Hey, if you get 3 running backs injured, that's terrible, but no worries, because with the walk-ons, you still got 4 more. In this hard 105 world, you don't. There's going to be a difficult decision for teams to make as to how many to carry at each spot, because it's not like the NFL where there's endless reserves of people walking the streets that you can just go sign in November. In college, once the roster at 105 is set and the season starts, you can't add to it. It's it. That's it. That's all you got. And if you have a rash of injuries at one spot, it could be really troublesome. And running back is one of those spots where you can easily have a run of bad ankles and bad knees. So I do think number of running backs you carry is about to get a little complicated going forward.
And I mean, I think it's also one of those positions where you want dudes further down the depth chart for scout team purposes. If you want your defense to be physical, if you want them to be, if it starts with stopping the run for you, putting them in unfavorable situations, down in distances and all that. I mean, when you've got, hypothetically, if you've got a Barnett style player running your scout team rather than a walk-on caliber player, that's going to help your defense. So yeah, I mean, that certainly plays a part as well. But before we're going to eventually get into the Tommy Castellanos quote, and that's going to be a fun conversation, but we'll see in a minute, but I want to stay down this recruiting lane for just a minute longer, because there are some big time commitment dates coming up for players. In Alabama, when you talk about 2 weeks from now, this class can look vastly different, will look vastly different. I don't know who all it's going to be. I'm not going to go that far, but what I will tell you is it is going to look vastly different. Out of these players, who would you say are probably a couple, 1 or 2 of the have to get players in your opinion, and why is that?
Yeah, the ones that come to mind in terms of like have to get, we talked about it earlier a long time with the Roman Voss about how he was a must for Minnesota and a want for Alabama. And, even in our own lives, our own personal lives, having nothing to do with recruiting, you will pay a lot for a must in your life. I must have food. I must have a roof. I must have shoes. And you will pay for that. Wants are different. Wants are, if you can afford it, is it a good deal? I want that. I don't need it. Well, Minnesota needed Voss. Alabama just wanted him. Okay, now, who does Alabama need? I think Crowell at running back, C.D. Morgan at wide receiver, and Tank Jones are vital, not just because they're 5-star type talents. They're local to Alabama. I mean, those are kids you should prioritize and sign. Now, should doesn't mean that they will definitely get them, because other schools, they have good opportunities and money also. But I think those 3 come to mind for me as like musts as opposed to wants, are in-state 5-star type talents. And that's what I see in EJ from Jackson and CD from Alexander City and Tank from Mobile. I think those are guys that you could sort of must get. And I like Alabama's chances with all. There's too much optimism out there in terms of, Alabama's going to get them. They're in-state guys. No, that's not how it works in 2025. But I agree, Alabama might be the favorite to get all 3. I would throw in Javari Edwards as sort of a must get now that you've lost Jet Washington. I think Alabama needed one of those 2, probably not both. I think a lot of people are confused about, what do you mean Alabama wouldn't take both? Well, there's a budget. There's a budget, and 2 mega 5-stars at safety. Now you don't have any money for linebackers. I mean, that's literally how that works. So getting one of those 2 is big, and I do think Alabama's got a really good chance at Javari Edwards. So I'll throw in Xavier Griffin. To me, I don't know. It might be a little more want than must in the sense of he's from Georgia. He's not from here. He's very difficult to sign because everybody that fields a college football team has their offer and pitch to Xavier Griffin. But I do really like Alabama's chances there. So, boy, you get those 5 guys. I don't really care who else you fill in. That's one heck of a class, those 5 guys alone.
I would agree with you. I think CD Morgan is probably one of the must-gets in my opinion because we know how important wide receiver is to Kalen DeBoer's offense.
Yeah.
When you look at guys like Ryan Williams, you look at guys like, Latsier Brooks, like this is a different type of player. And I think the staff did a phenomenal job. Not only did they go out and get this big-bodied X style of receiver in Isaiah Horton, and on the recruiting front, more of a raw prospect, but still very highly recruited, highly rated in Derek Meadows. But CD Morgan is like everything that Kalen DeBoer looks for and more at that X position. He's big, he's physical, he's athletic. He plays both inside and out, has a great understanding on how to use his size as leverage. We talk about guys who can win vertically downfield, go up and win those 50-50 balls. With CD Morgan, it feels like it's an 80-20 ball. It doesn't even feel 50-50, man. I mean, the guy just when I think of, and I know Bama fans won't like, every time I think of a bailout option at receiver, I don't know why, because he's not the best to ever do it. But I think Seth Williams with Bo Nix, Seth Williams was like a go up and get it. And it felt, I say 70-30 because I think CD Morgan could be even more than that, or at least on the high school level, just a different planet. He can be a bailout option for your quarterback. Sometimes he just throws it up and you're like, what are you doing? And then next thing you know, Morgan's going up, climbing the ladder and getting it. He has the ability to win in traffic. He has the ability, the run after catch. And that's kind of, I saw a comparison to Savion Williams, the wide receiver for TCU, who's now with the Green Bay Packers. I didn't really like that comparison because even though he's 6'4", 220 as well, he's that height, weight, speed. He doesn't have great hands. He's more of a gadget player. Ball skills are definitely hit or miss. I think that CD Morgan has the ability to do the catch after run, run after catch and all of that stuff. But I think that his ball skills and his ability to win both in the short to intermediate parts of the field, the deep parts of the field, one of the most impressive receivers I've seen. And when you look at a guy like Ryan Williams, play him in the slot, play him at the Z, Latsier Brooks, play him in the slot, play him at the Z. Then you look at a guy like CD Morgan starting next year. And granted, Isaiah Horton could be back. Derek Meadows is still going to be a guy that they have there. But CD Morgan, man, I mean, and I could say this about a lot of them, and you covered all of them. I completely agree, but I was watching him a little bit more yesterday. One of the most impressive receivers that I can remember seeing. I'm surprised he's not rated quite a bit higher.
Yeah, I mean, you could say he's a 5-star and is underrated. I mean, really, with CD,
I would agree with that.
I mean, he's about as good as it gets as a wide receiver prospect. I mean, I remember the very first time I watched his film, he was a 10th grader at Alexander City, and I'm like, some guys are slam dunks. They just take almost the fun out of it, because I love watching huddle tapes, and I love forming my own opinions and keeping notes and writing it down. It doesn't have to be an Alabama guy. I mean, I just enjoy watching high school tape and kind of picking out who might be good. And CD Morgan sort of takes all the fun out. I mean, like any family member at your family reunion that you just pick out whoever's standing in the kitchen, watch this tape. Would you take him if you're Alabama? Yeah, says great grandma. I mean, he's just such a slam dunk. He's very fluid for a bigger bodied guy, and the ball skills. I mean, the ball skills are pretty phenomenal. Like you said, I love the contested catch stuff that you said. I couldn't agree more that a bailout guy for the quarterback. He's all of those things. I like when you can, with CD, he's a guy you're like, well, what we need is a possession receiver. Well, CD can do that. Well, what we need is a vertical threat. Well, CD can do that. What we need is a guy that can really get the edge blocked out there. Well, CD can do that. I mean, there's nothing he can't do. And I like building a wide receiver core like it's a basketball team, full of role players. But if you're a basketball team that does things like Oklahoma City did last night, win the NBA championship, they do have some good role players. You know what else they got? SGA. That's what they got. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, he was the best player in the whole league this year. He's a superstar. You need that to win championships. That's CD. He's SGA. He's not a role player. You get role players around him, but he's the show.
And that's, I think like Kalen DeBoer's offense, they had dudes, Jalen McMillan in the slot, Jalen Polk there's kind of as your Z move guy. You had Roma Dunze being like that number one, which you will not be the number one, especially as a freshman when Ron Williams is a junior. But right. I think for the future, when's the last time Alabama recruited a body type like this that is of this caliber? I mean, the closest thing you could say is Ja'Cory Brooks, but in my opinion, and I'm not trying to take a shot at Ja'Cory, he's not even in the same. I understand he was a 5-star. Yeah. He was not even in the same ballpark as CD Morgan as far as the talent and the ability. It's a kind of a different body. It's a different style, and it fits Kalen DeBoer's offense to a T.
There's a little Coop and a little Julio in CD. Now, I'm not saying, boy, he reminds me of Amari. Nah, or he reminds me of Julio. Yeah, it's sort of. But there is some Coop and Julio in CD. I mean, in terms of the build and how he plays and how he checks every box. I mean, anything you would want in a wide receiver, that's him.
Yes. I mean, and just the catch radius, man. I mean, I was watching if I was a quarterback, and the fact that Kalen DeBoer's offense likes to attack vertically, sometimes those opportunities aren't there. When you've got a bailout option like a CD Morgan, sometimes it doesn't have to be open for you to throw it. Sometimes you just throw it. And what it will do is if you let CD Morgan pop your defense a couple of times with some of those, and they're playing they're trying to play a single high look or something, and you hit some of those, or even if they're going too high and you still throw it and he still comes down with it, they start putting a lot of their focus on trying to figure out a way to stop that, and it just opens up opportunities for other guys. And I just that would be a massive get for Alabama. I like a lot of the players I watch because what I do is I look at it through Kalen DeBoer's and the coaching staff's lens and say, what angle are they taking with this guy? What's the purpose of this lowly rated 3-star? Why is this guy such a priority as a 5-star? And it's just, he's one of them. And Jairi Edwards, I would probably say, I could go through the whole list and we could spend the entire time talking about all of those guys, just like we did Morgan. Just, maybe it was the fact that he was predicted to Alabama last night. And so I just was like, let me go take another look, because it had been a little while since I'd watched him. And just, dude is special.
Wow. He's got a good young quarterback, gets him the ball too. By the way, his quarterback is really young. Is going to be a thing in a couple of years down the road in terms of a highly rated in-state quarterback. And for wide receivers, that really makes a difference. For a wide receiver prospect, you want an impressive highlight tape. You sort of need a quarterback and get you the ball. A lot of these good wide receivers are in high school are sort of handicapped or hamstrung by the fact that they don't really have a gifted quarterback that can get them the ball on time down the field. But he's got that at Phoenix City, at Alexander City, at Benjamin Russell High School. They got a good young quarterback, and I think that helps. That helps how hot his highlight tape looks.
That definitely helps because the quarterback is putting the ball in a spot where he can go up and get it. I mean, you can't underthrow it.
Not everybody's got that. Not everybody's got that.
That's
by any means.
That is 100% true. So some of these guys, hey, maybe if they just had a quarterback who could put them in those positions, maybe they could show off some of that too. It's just, Morgan. It's not every day you see a cat like that.
He'll play right away. I don't care what the depth situation. Some guys are great prospects, but they're showing up at a time where Alabama's got really good depth. Him, it won't matter. He'll be one of the better wide receivers on the team day one.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I'm just excited. He brings that size element. And that when you talk about a guy like Latsier Brooks, and I think you corrected me, and his name is not Latsier.
Lazier.
Lazier, like laser.
Per the official roster at Alabama. A lot of people don't know this little trick. It's a trick. It's not like, hey, I called Coach Shep and said, Shep, how do you say Latzier's name? If you go to the official roster, just pull up rolltide.com and you pull up the roster itself. Sometimes there's a little ear out to the side of the more difficult things. You just click on the ear and have your volume turned up, and there's a pronouncer, there's a pronunciation guide on there. That's where I get this stuff. It's not like super secret.
It's always funny because if it's ever a name that like I go out and I figure out how to pronounce it, but no one showed, they do like the thing where they sound it out for you.
Yeah.
My sounding out is way different. And when I type it, like sometimes I'll have notes and I'll type it next to their name to where like I can, if I panic, I can look at that and say Lazier, but you should see some of the words I use to let myself know how it's pronounced. It's pretty wild.
Here's a weird one though. I don't know this because it's not like I pal around with the guys. Every time I try, they kick me out. But I think the guys on the team nickname him or call him Lots, which is weird because I don't think that's how you say his name. But I think the kids on the team call him Lots, like Lotz. Hey, Lots. Yeah. But it's actually pronounced.
He's going to be catching lots of passes, so that makes
sense. maybe that's where it comes from.
So Tommy Castellanos, Florida State's quarterback, new quarterback, Boston College transfer, going to be playing Alabama in the season opener here in just a couple of months, I suppose. Yeah. He decided to step out there and make a little bit of a comment. Thought it was pretty interesting. Let's see if I can find it where I can read it for people. I mean, because I saw just the quick sentence.
It's stunning.
First
time I saw the quote, I didn't believe it, but then I saw it was in a Pete Nakos from On Three, and I'm like, oh no, this is real.
I thought it was no three, not On Three that posted that.
Exactly, fake site or some AI thing, but no, Pete Nakos. It's as credible as it comes.
So he was asked about getting to play Alabama, and he believes that the Seminoles can put the nation on notice with a week 1 win over Alabama, which is true. I would put everybody on notice. But he said, I'm excited, man. People, I don't know if they know, but you go back and watch every first game that I played in, we always start fast. I dreamed of moments like this. I dreamed of playing against Alabama. They don't have a Nick Saban to save them. I just don't see them stopping me. So, and there were some other quotes in there too, Jimmy.
Really? That's the only one I've seen. I haven't read the whole thing yet.
It's
nothing that bad, I hope.
Well, I didn't have nearly as much talent as I do here. I didn't have the guys, but over here I have some of the best athletic guys. I'm not the fastest one on the team over here. He said that. Let's see. He did. I thought this was pretty. When asked about why Florida State was appealing, first of all, he's from Florida. And he close, I think, to Tallahassee, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know the exact. But he said that was the team that he always wanted to play for, so I get it. But when he was asked about him, he said one of the things that was appealing is just how desperate they were. And the same for me. If this doesn't go right, then who knows? But I just liked how desperate they were. They could have gone out and gotten any quarterback in the country with NIL. That's false, but besides, we won't go that far. And they chose me. Just excited to be here from the get-go. He believed in me to be his quarterback and to be back with Gus.
He's shocking
pretty cocky.
Shocking that the Bill O'Brien that we know ran that guy off his team.
Yeah. Okay. But this is what I want to know. Do you think that if we call Bill O'Brien, do you think he's helping us? Or is there some bad blood between Bama and Bill O'Brien with some of the stuff that he called?
I don't think he cares, but I do think that Bill O'Brien would hear that quote and go, yep, that's Tommy.
That was him. He brought up.
He said that. Like, Bill, did Tommy say this? And yeah, he said that. I'm sure he did. Gosh, it's just so unwise. I mean, we all are used to Nick Saban. That's not from the Saban School of Sound Bites.
No, it's not. And he also said that he didn't like Boston College, that he should have left after Hafley, I think is how you say it. His head coach left. Bill O'Brien came in. He said he wished he would have left. He said, I just didn't like it. Bill O'Brien and I butted heads early in the season. I got banged up a few games. We had a meeting and it kind of blew up in my face. I did so much for that program and I did everything I could and I just wasn't repaid the right way. So just this kid do you think he's going to be allowed to speak to the media again this offseason?
I do think it's a good litmus test for what kind of controls Mike Norvell has on the program, because we know what would happen at Alabama with Nick Saban And again, that's an extreme example because Saban didn't really like the players talk to the media at all. He just couldn't help it after NIL. After NIL, Saban had to let the players talk to the media because the players needed to build brands for themselves so they can make more money. So it all changed in terms of Saban saying, well, these guys need to talk to the media now to build their brands. But before that, Saban really had tight controls on it for this reason. Now, I've already seen, it was right before we started recording, so I've heard that a couple of our players have chirped back online.
Ooh, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, I think LT Overton's one, and Kelby Collins is another. I've heard, but I haven't seen it because it was right before we started recording. And I hope that's not the case because I would prefer, being old school myself, being from that Saban school, being from the Gene Stallings era, I would prefer Alabama never to say anything at all, but then say a whole lot on August 30th. I mean, that was the day to clap back, not now, because now you're just going to look no different than he does.
Well, the good part about it is now, while Florida State's offense won't be dealing with a hostile environment, neither will Alabama's defense because they're on the field at the same time. So
correct.
From a communication standpoint and all of that, like, that's good. But I mean, Alabama struggle with dual threat quarterbacks. And I was actually surprised when I went back and watched, but also crunched the numbers. I had said, yeah, there were some, some of those triple option elements that giving them trouble. But when I went back, I mean, it was like, Nico Iamaleava, he had quite a bit of success. Obviously, Byron Brown for USF, he had success. When they go those like 3-3-5 looks, it's not a true 3-3-5 because the wolf is so shallow. Like when you look at Mississippi State's defense, they're very multiple. They do the 4-2-5. They, getting some 3-4 looks every once in a while. Obviously, there's some connection there with Coleman Hutzler being their defensive coordinator coming over from Alabama. But when they go a 3-3-5, their edge, who they still call the jack, he lines up as a middle linebacker. So he's the same width or same distance off the football as their other two backers. And he's and most times when you run that 3-3-5 defense, that middle linebacker in that instance, which is going to be, your jack, or in our case, the wolf, he's supposed to be your fourth defensive lineman, but he's responsible for quarterback. And it's supposed to be more of a contained. You can, based off of what the running back does, is he flaring, what's going to be asked to do.
You might blitz, like a delay blitz kind of thing.
Yes, a lot of off-ball blitzing and stuff like that. But I kind of wish that Alabama would do a little bit more of that. Make it if you're going to do that, make it a true 3-3-5 and have your Quay Russaw, who's got really good closing speed, way better closing speed than people realize, or, whoever it ends up being. I don't think Jan Pierre would be super comfortable doing that. But, I mean, you've got certain guys who can. I wouldn't be opposed to doing some of that and giving him responsibilities of the quarterback to keep him contained, always keep pressure in their face, because it is going to be a difficult game. The humidity is going to be rough, the temperature, all of that. I think that they are going to be much improved compared to 2-10. That's an automatic. It's just a matter of how much.
They will not be a 2-10 football team. They
no
will
way.
Not. They might be 6-6. I'm not ruling that out. They might be.
Agreed.
But they're not going to be 2-10.
It wouldn't be the first 6-6 team to give Alabama trouble.
When you watch Castellanos play and see what he did at Boston College before Bill O'Brien went in there and Bill O'Brien's a pro style. Bill O'Brien signed Dylan Lonergan. Dylan Lonergan is nothing like Thomas Castellanos. Nothing like him. Thomas Castellanos is like Nick Marshall, at Auburn, basically. I mean, he's kind of like that. And when Bill O'Brien went there, wanted to run a pro-style offense, it was just a matter of time before Castellanos was no longer quarterback. He had to be the quarterback to start the season because he had accomplished some great things at BC, and he was kind of entrenched as the starter. And I think that their eventual button heads and Castellanos leaving was sort of inevitable because he was just a square peg in a round hole, in terms of the Bill O'Brien offense. But I say all that to say, watching Alabama struggle defending Diego Pavia, watching Alabama struggle to defend even Jackson Arnold, in November, the South Florida quarterback rushed for 100 yards. Nico Iamaleava made plays with his feet against Alabama. When you see Alabama get dinged repeatedly by quarterback runs in 2024, I think you're a little crazy if you're not nervous about FSU, because not only is Castellanos a superior runner to basically all of those guys? He's got Gus Malzahn, who knows exactly how to coach that type offense. I mean, Castellanos went from, square peg round hole to square peg square hole. He's a perfect fit with what Gus can do. I'll tell you who's very similar to Gus. Just coached the guy, John Reese Plumlee. About two guys that go for him. That's kind of who Castellanos is. I think Alabama fans should be not nervous, like you could get upset, this might not go well, but you just watched a whole season of Alabama struggling against this a year ago. So it's fair to be a little anxious about what it's going to look like defending it in a hostile environment in September.
Well, I think I think that they did a pretty good job against Lenore Sellers' legs. Yeah. That was something that, and you saw some newness, like they had just lost to Vanderbilt. They actually seemed to have a specific game plan for Lenore Sellers and that South Carolina offense, and it was really designed to stop the run. They were going to force the game onto Sellers' shoulders, and he did make a couple of really good throws. And I don't necessarily know that would be the approach the next time around, because he has proven that he can make some of those big-time throws. But at the time, he was still kind of establishing himself as that guy. There were some questions about the limitations as far as him as a passer. Castellanos has had some success through the year, and through Gus Malzahn's scheme, they're going to be able to get some guys open and do some things. But, I also think that there will be a priority as far as stopping his legs, stopping Florida State's run game overall, and then seeing, hey, can you go out there and beat us with your arm? And maybe he's able to do it, maybe he's not. But one thing, we haven't seen the full Castellanos as far as being able to run around and do whatever he wants to do, because one of the other quotes that he said is that Gus Malzahn is just giving him the keys and allowing him just to be himself. Just go out there and play football within the offense. That's what I need. I don't need a dog collar or leash on me. I just need coach to say, just go be you, go play. That's what I was missing at Boston College. So that's what he's saying.
Boy, Bill did a number. Bill did a number on that kid.
He had about 4 or 5 quotes in there that would have royally pissed Nick Saban off.
I know he was unpopular with a lot of Alabama fans, but Bill O'Brien's a really good quarterback coach. He's really good at it. He's done it at the highest levels with some of the best guys to do it, like Tom Brady, even like pre-injury, pre-weirdness Deshaun Watson. But Bill O'Brien's tough to play for. He's a cursor, and I mean that. Bill O'Brien cusses out his quarterback every day. That's just how he's tough to play for. Now throw in the fact this kid was just a bad fit and has a tendency to obviously be a little undisciplined with his quotes. Gosh, I can only imagine what that must have been like up there.
I'm gonna go ahead and tell you, whatever he's saying publicly, I promise you he was saying more quietly behind the scenes. So
I mean, Bill O'Brien's cussing out Bryce Young.
Yeah.
So imagine what it was like with this.
Yeah, that's a great point, because Bryce will tell you there was a couple of times he caught an ad chewing from Bill, and that's about the softest personality, nicest kid on the planet. Imagine somebody
manners, does everything right, easy to coach, smart as heck. Even he's incurring the wrath. Imagine what it was like for this guy who's been beaten down. It sounds like.
I would love to know what some of those players heard and saw this. Boston College players. All right, Jimmy, that's going to do it. Appreciate you so much hopping on here with me. This has been fun. Definitely need to do this again. Do you have anything else that you want to say before we hop out of here?
Just excited to watch a lot of the recruiting hard work by Courtney Morgan and his staff. It's been a lot of hard work, and there's been a lot of questions out there by the Alabama fans. I think they're about to see the payoff over the next 2 to 3 weeks.
I completely agree with you. And I understand right now it seems like everybody's been hyping this stuff up and they're only getting a couple of 3-star. Those 3 stars are important, but also that's not really what we were all talking about. So just be patient. I think it's going to be a couple of good weeks if you are an Alabama fan. Appreciate everybody for listening in, and we will be back again tomorrow.
Escape to Pearl River Resort.